In this video, we are going to talk about how to create tables within Bootstrap. So Bootstrap handles tables much like any other HTML reader would, so it's very standard, or at least your standard basic table will look exactly like how you would code a table in any other HTML document. So I'm going to go ahead and navigate into my document here, and I'm going to navigate before this paragraph text. I'm going to go ahead and place in my table here. So let's create another, I'll create another H2 here, and I'm going to call this a basic table. And then within this, I'm going to go ahead and create my table. So this will be a little bit of a refresher. You can skip ahead if you're like, I know how to make a table. So I'll create my table. I'm going to go ahead and give it a class of table. And then I'll create my table heads. Table row. And I'll do some of my headers here. So now I've got my table heads. I'm going to go ahead and create my table body. So I need to start that after the end of my table head tag. And my table data tags. So what I've gone ahead and done there was, if I break this down, here's my table headers. So there I have first name, last name, email, created a table body, and here a new row for first name, last name, and then the email. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this little chunk to put in a couple more entries, so I'll have some interesting things for my table. So there I have my table. So I've should have 3 rows of contents and my header. So I'm going to go ahead and save that and check out my preview here within brackets or within my browser. So I can see there's my H2 tag for basic table, my table headers, and then my columns of information. So to add some of the basic semantic basic classes that Bootstrap has built into it for tables, I'm going to go ahead and navigate back into my code here where I have the class of table, and then I'm going to add next to it is a class of table striped. I'm going to save that, and then you can see that my table has popped in and it has this striped every other row look to it, so that adds some different visual interest. Another class that you can add to it is table bordered, which is going to add a border. You see how that adds a 1 pixel border around everything. If you would like that border look, you can add the class of table hover, so that if you hover over any of these items, they darken. So table hover. And now if I hover over that, you can see that hover effect taking place. You can change your table. This is by default a light table. I can change it to table dark. And you see that's going to give me a dark look to it, that real dark gray. I can make this table dark and table striped. So if I type in table striped, you can see now that is dark and striped. And then I could add pile onto that and make it table hover. And now make it a hoverable striped table. So you can add these different classes on there. You can compound them if you want to have more of a custom look. It's not an either or, you can just keep going. You can also add your contextual color classes into these as well. So if you would like to make a certain row into a contextual color class, you can do that as well. So I'm going to navigate back over to my table here, and I'm going to add a contextual color class to some of my different rows here. So I'm going to navigate to this table row for my table header, and I'm going to give it a class of table success. I'm going to navigate to this table row. I'm going to give it a class of table warning, and I'll change one more, do this one, give it a class of table danger. I'm going to save that, and then you can see how those rows have changed to still have their contextual color applied to them. So you can add color to any row, all rows, however you would like to do that to put in contextual color classes into your tables. You can make a table responsive so that way it adds a horizontal scroll bar if your table has too much information to fit in the place that you've designed it into. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that with our table. Right now it fits nicely into this column, but I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more table heads so that it starts getting a little squished. That looks pretty squished. Let's do one more. And now I can't fit all of that into that. So to go ahead and make this responsive so that it fits a lot nicer into that, all I need to do is add in, I need to wrap a div around my table and give it the class of table responsive. So ahead of this table, I'm going to go ahead and create a new div. I'm going to give it a class of table responsive. Comment this out, end of responsive table. Cut that, put it right down here at the end of that table and save it. So, and I guess this was still not quite enough to go all the way around, so let me add a couple more table heads in there. So just copying a few more in there. There we go. And now if I save that, you can see that if your table has too much information to fit into the space given, now it's going to bring up that scroll bar so I can scroll across the table. So this is really nice if you have a lot of in-depth information and you want it to fit nicely into the area you need it to. So this will give you those scroll bars if your table is not fitting. So there are more things to understand about tables. However, this is a nice basic overview on some of the basic things that Bootstrap can do in tables. Reminder that most of the things that you may have done in HTML otherwise also works within the Bootstrap framework. So things like your column classes and your responsive classes still work when you work within that Bootstrap. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.